Two members of the Braveheart cast did not live to see Hollywood reckon with Mel Gibson. One was driven off a Scottish road near Loch Ness. One slipped away quietly in Santa Monica. The other six are still here, and one of them just played the most feared man on television. Number one is the man who directed Braveheart and starred in it. Mel Columcille Gerard Gibson was 39 years old when the film premiered at the Seattle International Film Festival in May 1995. Born in Peekskill, New York, he was the sixth of 11 children, son of a railroad brakeman and an Irish-born mother. The family relocated to Sydney in 1968 when he was 12, partly so his older brothers would not be drafted into Vietnam. He trained at Sydney's National Institute of Dramatic Art. His film debut paid $20 for a low-budget Australian production called Summer City, and his global breakthrough arrived in 1979 with George Miller's Mad Max. Braveheart almost did not happen. Warner Brothers agreed to finance the film only if Gibson signed for a fourth Lethal Weapon, and he refused. Paramount eventually came on board with 20th Century Fox as international partner, splitting the $72 million budget. During one financing argument, Gibson threw an ashtray through a wall. The film grossed $213 million worldwide, won 5 Academy Awards including Best Picture and Best Director, and made him the most powerful actor-director in Hollywood. 5 years later, he was paid $25 million to star in The Patriot, at the time the highest single salary in industry history, breaking Arnold Schwarzenegger's previous record. What followed was the longest fall in modern Hollywood. He had married Australian dental nurse Robin Moore in 1980 after meeting her as a housemate in Adelaide. They had 7 children across 28 years. Robin filed for divorce in 2009. The 2011 settlement, reported by People magazine at $425 million, also entitled her to half of every Gibson film residual for the rest of his life. Every time Braveheart streams or sells, half of the income goes to the woman he married before he was famous. The 2006 Malibu DUI arrest, the leaked 2010 tapes, the racist and anti-Semitic rants. Hollywood blacklisted him for nearly a decade. He returned to directing with Hacksaw Ridge in 2016 and earned a second Best Director nomination. Today he has 9 children. President Donald Trump named him a special ambassador to Hollywood in 2025. William Wallace was the man who buried his wife and burned an empire. Mel Gibson is the man whose dental nurse wife took $425 million and half of every future paycheck. And Braveheart, 30 years later, is still paying her. The second name on the call sheet had already turned down James Bond. Patrick Joseph McGoohan was 67 years old at the Braveheart premiere, born in Astoria, Queens to Irish parents from County Leitrim, raised in Sheffield, Yorkshire, after the family briefly returned to Ireland. He left school at 16 and worked as a chicken farmer and a lorry driver before becoming a stage manager at Sheffield Repertory Theatre. Orson Welles cast him as Starbuck in his 1955 York production of Moby Dick Rehearsed, and later said McGoohan would have been one of the great actors of his generation if television had not grabbed him. Television did grab him. He was offered the lead in Dr. No, the first James Bond film, and turned it down. The Saint came next. He turned that down too, citing discomfort with the character's sexual promiscuity. Instead, he created The Prisoner in 1967, a 17-episode dystopian series he wrote, directed, produced, and starred in. The show's mysterious final episode caused such an uproar that McGoohan left England for over 20 years and relocated to Los Angeles. 2 Primetime Emmys followed for his work on Columbo opposite Peter Falk. Braveheart revived his career at 67. Longshanks became a king who threw his son's lover out a castle window with the calm of a man rearranging furniture, a ruler who described his policy toward Scotland as breeding them out if he could not get them out. The performance earned no Oscar nomination because Braveheart became the 9th Best Picture winner in Academy history, with no acting nominations at all. He was paid an undisclosed flat fee with no back-end points, no producer credit, and no equity in a film that grossed $213 million. Joan Drummond had been his wife since 1951. The marriage lasted 57 years. They had 3 daughters, no scandals, no public statements. He died in Santa Monica on January 13, 2009, at age 80, 2 months before what would have been his 81st birthday. The cause was a short illness the family did not disclose. His agent told reporters that McGoohan had been writing up until the end. The man who created the most enigmatic spy series in British television history took the answer to that show's final episode with him to Santa Monica. Longshanks, who never could keep his son's secrets, was the role that brought him back to American audiences one last time. Third on the list was a man who originated Hannibal Lecter for the screen 5 years before Anthony Hopkins won an Oscar for the same character. Brian Dennis Cox was 48 years old when Braveheart premiered. Born in Dundee on June 1, 1946, the youngest of 5 children in a working-class Catholic family. His father, a grocery shopkeeper, died of pancreatic cancer when Cox was 8. After that, his mother suffered a series of mental breakdowns. In his own words, he was raised by his older sisters. Cox trained at the London Academy of Music and Dramatic Art and built one of the great British stage careers. He won an Olivier Award in 1988 for Titus Andronicus at the Royal Shakespeare Company. As Dr. Hannibal Lecter in Michael Mann's Manhunter in 1986, he worked for union-scale wages. 5 years later, he watched Anthony Hopkins take the same character to a Best Actor Oscar in The Silence of the Lambs. Mel Gibson personally asked Cox to play Argyle Wallace after Cox initially turned the part down. Cox told Gibson he was physically wrong for the role, that Argyle was meant to be cadaverous and thin. He took the part anyway. His 12 minutes of screen time carry the film's moral spine. Argyle is what young William's character is built on. At the Edinburgh International Book Festival in 2025, Cox called the script bollocks and the film, in his words, just a lie. His personal life moved in 3 chapters. First marriage was to Lillian Monroe Carr in 1966 at age 20, lasting less than a year. Then came actress Caroline Burt in 1968. 18 years, 2 children, and a stillbirth of twins. That marriage ended in 1986. German-Iranian actress Nicole Ansari saw his King Lear in Hamburg in 1990 and came back 7 more times. They married in Las Vegas in 2002 and have 2 sons. He told The Times in April 2026 that he and Ansari maintain separate homes 9 minutes apart in Primrose Hill, London. A marriage built on respectful distance after a lifetime of trying it the other way. In 2018, at age 72, HBO cast him as Logan Roy in Succession. The show ran 5 seasons. Cox won a Golden Globe in 2020. Logan's trademark dismissal became the line of an entire television era. Cox earned more in a single season of Succession at 76 than he likely earned across the entirety of his Braveheart contract. Argyle Wallace was the quiet uncle who told a boy his mind must be sharper than his sword. Brian Cox spent 60 years proving that exact thing about himself, and at 72 he finally got to play a king of his own. Fourth was an actress with 1 prior film credit. Catherine Jane McCormack was 23 years old when Braveheart premiered, born April 3, 1972 in Epsom, Surrey. Her mother died of lupus when McCormack was 6. A steelworker father raised her and her brother Stephen alone. She trained at the Oxford School of Drama. Her screen debut had been Anna Campion's horror film Loaded in 1994, a production she has called horrible and miserable, saying the director failed to support a first-time actress. Murren was the soft hinge of the entire film. She was the reason Wallace fought, and the reason the audience was permitted to believe his violence had a moral source. McCormack had perhaps 30 minutes of screen time across the first hour, and the scene where she communicates her secret marriage to Wallace through a folded handkerchief is the kind of beat the script never spelled out. The actress simply found it. What she did after Braveheart was rare. She refused to relocate to Los Angeles. Tired of being cast as tragic women with long hair, she cut her hair off to break the pattern. Nearly every Hollywood script she was offered after that, she turned down, telling interviewers she reads very few scripts she is passionate about, maybe 1 in every 20 or 30. The Land Girls and Dangerous Beauty followed in 1998. Spy Game, opposite Robert Redford and Brad Pitt in 2001, and 28 weeks later in 2007. Everything else was theater. All My Sons at the National Theatre, the original London cast of The 39 Steps, A Doll's House at Bath Theatre Royal. She received a Laurence Olivier nomination for All My Sons in 2001. She has never publicly married. Between 1998 and 2000, she was with actor Joseph Fiennes. Beyond that, she has stayed out of the celebrity press for 2 decades. Recent work includes Apple TV's Slow Horses and the 2025 series Lockerbie, A Search for Truth. Murren died in the first act of Braveheart so that the film could happen. Catherine McCormack walked off that hillside at 23 and built one of the quietest, most stubbornly self-directed careers in British acting. And 30 years later, she is still working on her own terms. The fifth name had received a 1966 Academy Award nomination. Ian Edmund Bannon was 66 years old when Braveheart premiered, born on June 29, 1928 in Airdrie, Lanarkshire, son of a Scottish lawyer. He was educated at St. Aloysius College in Glasgow and Ratcliffe College in Leicestershire, where his classmate was a young Patrick McGoohan, the future Longshanks, who would survive him by 10 years. Bannon served in the British Army in Egypt and made his stage debut in Dublin in 1947, becoming one of the original members of the Royal Shakespeare Company. His 1966 Academy Award nomination for The Flight of the Phoenix made him the first Scottish actor ever nominated for an Oscar. 2 BAFTAs followed. Drinking with Peter O'Toole and Richard Burton filled his 60s, until hepatitis forced him to stop. The leper in Braveheart was the film's quietest monster, bandaged, half-hidden, advising his son to betray Wallace because that was what the world demanded of nobility. Bannon made him sympathetic and repulsive at once, a father trying to save his son from a death he believed was coming. He met his wife Marilyn Salisbury in 1976 when she tried to park in his reserved space at the Royal Shakespeare Theatre, and her car would not start. They were friends for 2 years before marrying in 1978. He was 49, she was 26. They had no children. The marriage lasted 21 years. His late career resurgence after Braveheart was unexpected. In 1998, he played Jackie O'Shea, a warm, crafty pensioner conspiring to claim a dead neighbor's lottery winnings, in Waking Ned Devine. The film became a surprise international hit. He won the Screen Actors Guild Award for the role. Only weeks before his death, Michael Aspel surprised him on camera for an episode of This Is Your Life. On November 3, 1999, at approximately noon, Ian Bannon was a passenger in the car. His wife Marilyn was driving on Knockys Strait, a stretch of road on the south side of Loch Ness between Inverness and Fort Augustus. The car overturned. Bannon was pronounced dead at the scene at age 71. Marilyn, then 53, was airlifted to hospital with what were reported as slight injuries and was speaking to friends by phone within hours. She survived him by 20 years and died in 2019. Coatbridge College in Scotland still gives the Ian Bannon Memorial Award every year to its outstanding drama student. The man who had just been celebrated on national television, who had just won a Screen Actors Guild Award for the most warmly received role of his career, was killed 11 months later in a car his wife had probably driven 100 times before, on a road they both knew well, just after Hollywood had finally caught up with what Scotland already knew about him. If one of those Braveheart deaths hits harder than the other, drop your answer below. The one on the Scottish road, or the quiet one in Santa Monica. There is no wrong answer. Number 6 taught secondary school in Dublin for 10 years. Brendan Gleeson was 40 years old when Braveheart premiered, born March 29, 1955. He attended St. Joseph's Christian Brothers School in Fairview and took his Bachelor of Arts at University College Dublin, majoring in English and Irish. At Belcamp College in North County Dublin, he taught those same subjects for approximately a decade. Evening hours went to semi-professional theater. In 1991, at 36, he left teaching for acting full-time. 3 years later, Mel Gibson saw him in a Dublin stage production of Juno and the Paycock and offered him Hamish. Gleeson nearly lost the role. He had committed to a transfer of Juno and the Paycock to Chicago and refused to break the contract, saying that quitting his hometown stage would mean he would never work in Dublin again. Gibson initially gave the part to another actor, then reworked the schedule so Gleeson could honor both commitments. Hamish threw rocks, swung axes, watched his friend get tortured to death, and made the audience love him in the process. The performance opened every door that followed. Gleeson played Irish gangster Martin Cahill in John Boorman's The General in 1998 and became an international leading man. Mad-Eye Moody followed across 4 Harry Potter films. An Emmy in 2009 came for playing Winston Churchill in HBO's Into the Storm. A Best Supporting Actor. Oscar nomination arrived for The Banshees of Inisherin in 2023. He has been married to Mary Weldon since 1982, 44 years. They have 4 sons. Domhnall is an Academy Award-nominated actor known for Star Wars, Ex Machina, and About Time. Brian is acclaimed for Peaky Blinders and Frank of Ireland. In Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1, Brendan played Mad-Eye Moody, while Domhnall played Bill Weasley, father and son working at the same Hogwarts on the same day. Brendan, Brian, and Domhnall later co-created the Channel 4 sitcom Frank of Ireland in 2021. Gleeson speaks fluent Irish and plays fiddle and mandolin. He lives in Malahide, County Dublin. Hamish was the boyhood friend who threw rocks at the world on William Wallace's behalf. The man who played him was a 40-year-old schoolteacher who gave up his pension to do it, and he raised 2 of Ireland's finest working actors in the process. If this is the kind of story you came for, the subscribe button is right there. The next 2 Braveheart entries include a French actress who refused the Legion of Honor, and a Robert the Bruce who came back 24 years later to write his own ending. 7th was a French film star who had been famous since the age of 14, Sophie Daniel. Sylvie Maupoux was 28 years old when Braveheart premiered, born November 17, 1966 in Paris, daughter of a truck driver and a shop assistant who divorced when she was 9. At 14, she registered with a modeling agency. From 1,500 candidates, she was chosen for Claude Pinotto's teen comedy La Boum in 1980. The film made her an instant national star. At 16, she bought herself out of her own Gaumont studio contract for 1 million French francs, freeing herself from a 5-year deal in order to expand her range. She had been with Polish director Andrzej Żuławski since age 17. He was 26 years older. Their son Vincent was born in 1995 during the Braveheart shoot. The relationship lasted 16 years and ended in 2001. With American producer Jim Lemley, she had a daughter Juliet in 2002. From 2007 to 2014, she was with actor Christopher Lambert. When asked why he had cast her, Mel Gibson told the press, "She is beautiful, she is French, and she is a good actress, and the character needed to be at least 2 of those things." Marceau later told interviewers she had spent her career being offered tragic women with long hair, and she cut her hair short after Braveheart to break the pattern. Anna Karenina followed in 1997, filmed in Russia, the first American adaptation of Tolstoy's novel. The World Is Not Enough followed in 1999. She played Electra King, the Bond girl opposite Pierce Brosnan, in the 19th James Bond film. In March 2016, she officially refused the Legion of Honor, France's highest civilian honor, after President François Hollande awarded the same honor to Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Nayef. The decision was reported across the French press. She has directed 3 films, published a semi-autobiographical novel in 1996, and appeared on more than 300 magazine covers worldwide. Princess Isabel whispered that the dying king's blood would die with him. Sophie Marceau, at 59, has spent 46 years refusing to let anyone else write the ending of her own story. The 8th name belongs to the man who played Robert the Bruce. Angus MacFadyen was 31 years old when Braveheart premiered. Born September 21, 1963 in Glasgow, son of a World Health Organization doctor. The family moved every few years. Childhood took him through the Philippines, Singapore, parts of Africa and France, where he has said he worked as a child clown in a circus. He returned to Britain for university at Edinburgh, then trained at the Central School of Speech and Drama in London. His professional debut was the 1991 BBC film The Lost Language of Cranes, playing a gay son disclosing his sexuality to his father, a father played by Brian Cox, the same actor who would 4 years later play his cinematic uncle on Braveheart. Bruce was the man with the hardest choice in the film, keep his castles or lose them on Wallace's behalf. McFadyen played him as a man flinching from his own conscience. The scene where he watches his father die and finally chooses Wallace's side, voice cracking on the line about leading them, is the emotional center of the film's third act. He received no Oscar nomination, no Golden Globe, no BAFTA, no Screen Actors Guild nomination, because Braveheart became the 9th Best Picture winner in Academy history with no acting nominations at all. After Braveheart, he played Orson Welles in Tim Robbins' Cradle Will Rock in 1999, Vice Consul DuPont opposite Christian Bale in Equilibrium in 2002, Jeff Denlin in Saw 3 and Saw 4, and Robert Rogers across 31 episodes of AMC's Turn. Washington's Spies from 2014 to 2017. He plays Jor-El, the father of Superman, in the CW series Superman and Lois. In 2019, 24 years after Braveheart, he wrote, produced and starred in Robert the Bruce, a direct sequel reprising his role at age 55. He is the only Braveheart cast member ever to return to the world of the film. His personal life is kept entirely private. There is no public marriage record and no publicly acknowledged children. The Bruce was a man who built his throne on someone else's sacrifice. Angus MacFadyen spent 25 years quietly making sure that performance was not the only thing he would be remembered for. And then he sat down and wrote his own sequel. 2 of them are in graves. 6 are still in motion. 30 years after the Freedom Speech, that is everything that is left of the Braveheart cast.